Welcome to Grew with Portia, the podcast that uncovers the hidden treasures within grief. I'm your host, Portia the producer, and I'm inviting you to join me on a transformative journey where we will exchange laughter, of course, the best medicine of them all. Reflect on cherished memories. Remember that time that the little boy grabbed my hand instead of his mother's at the amusement park? Yikes. And of course, discover gratitude while navigating one of life's hardest challenges, loss. So get ready to grow with me, Portia the producer. Let's dive in. Hello, everybody, and welcome back to Groove with Portia. I am your host, Portia Booker, and as always, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to keep it with the latest and greatest of all with Groove with Portia. So, a few months ago, I had the honor of being interviewed or talked with by a medium. And those of you who know, I talked with a medium shortly after my mom made her transition, and also someone gifted me with another conversation with her. And one of the things that she said to me was, Portia, you have to do Portia. You have to do things the Portia way. This is what your mom wants me to tell you. And how many of us tend to bury who we are by the pressures of society, especially as women, when we experience grief and loss and we have to put on a mask to pretend that we're okay, but really we're not. So really let that sink in today, everybody. So today, everyone, I have the honor of being joined by a woman who is redefining what success is for not just women, but for others around the world. She's also an author of a best-selling book called I Buried Her in a French Press. She is also the host of a podcast called Let's Talk Supply Chain. So welcome, Miss Sarah Barnes-Humphrey to Grew with Portia. Sarah, it's an honor to have you today. How are you?
It is such a pleasure. Thank you so much for having me on the show. I'm super excited to be here, and I can't wait to dive into what we're going to talk about today.
You know, Sarah, I got to throw this in here. I noticed when we were talking before we started the conversation today, you have a second podcast called Blended. And I recognize that there's a little bit of a coffee theme going here. So I'm curious, Sarah, what's your favorite kind of coffee?
Well, I have an espresso machine. I have to say I really, really like it.
Okay.
I'm able to have like all sorts of different coffees. So it depends what day, like how I feel in the morning. So, they've got the B6 capsule, they've got the pumpkin spice. And so or the caramel. So depending on how I feel that day, that determines what kind of coffee I'm going to have in the morning.
You know, I wondered if there was a statistic out about if the type of coffee you like determines like your dating life type of thing. I wondered about that. Now, me, I like my coffee dark, like my soul and my sense of humor. So those of you who don't, I mean, people know I do. I drink my coffee dark, no sugar, no cream, just dark like my
I
soul and sense of
wish.
humor.
I wish. I can't do it. I actually can't have dairy. And so I
Ah,
have this creamer that is cashew and coconut, but
okay.
I can't do dark coffee. Well, not dark coffee, but like black coffee without anything in it. And actually, I'm going to Dominican tomorrow, and I'm really worried they're not going to have creamer for me, so I might have to dump a whole bunch of sugar into the coffee just so I can drink it.
Or you can always water it down a little bit, just put some water in there.
Maybe.
Or if they have non-dairy ice cream, that's another
Oh,
idea. So there you go. I'm just
okay.
throwing out ideas to you,
Those are
Sarah.
great ideas. Those are
Sarah,
great ideas.
you know, we're grateful for coffee, right? Because you can have
Mhm.
any flavor throughout the day, throughout the week, right? I'm sure that you'll
Yep.
have probably a Sarah branded coffee for Mondays or Tuesdays. But Sarah, other than coffee, what else are you grateful for today?
I am grateful for you. I'm grateful for being on this podcast. I'm grateful for the roof over my head, and I'm grateful for my bonus children and my husband and my dogs. There's a lot to be grateful for.
I agree. I tell everybody that you can find gratitude in any and everything. I
Yeah.
write in my gratitude journal every single day. And Sarah, I even write about being grateful for my grief journey. I remember shortly after both my parents made their transition, when I was sitting at the funeral home for my dad's service before everybody else, I took time to write how grateful I was for the time that we spent together, even the
Mm.
terrible moments that we had in our life that we couldn't, have the father-daughter relationship that I desired. But at the same time, that taught me to appreciate the relationships that I have today, even with the guy who I'm currently with right now. But that's a whole story for a whole nother day.
It's so beautiful though. And I think sometimes we miss out on that because we're so
Yes.
focused on the lack or, what it is that we wish we had. And when
Mm-hmm.
we focus on those things, we forget what it is that is good in our lives and what we could be grateful for. I don't want to say we should because I think there's too many shoulds and, there's too much societal pressure on a variety of levels. But I think the could word, right? Like the gratitude that we could have just for the little things. And I think also it helps us see signs
Yes.
when we're
Yes.
grateful, right? We see the pebbles, we see the signs, and those signs really help us to figure out whether we're in the right place at the right time for ourselves, you know?
Oh, 100%. Oh, we're gonna have to have a part two to talk about just signs, Sarah, because I've seen many since both of my parents have made their transitions from the lottery tickets that I find. They haven't won yet. Hopefully one will be the winner. But the tickets, the birds, the numbers, right? It opened me up to a different form of communication. And even the signs from looking at past versions of myself. A few months ago, I was going through some old footage from when I used to anchor. And I buried that part of my story, Sarah, for years because I was ashamed about the career path that I aspired to have that didn't come to fruition. And I'm curious, Sarah, for you, you've had different losses in your life to get to where you are today, different past versions of you, possibly health challenges, right? Heartbreaks that we go through, even being, discredited because you're in a predominantly male dominated industry. And I'm
Mhm.
curious, Sarah, what did it take for you to integrate all of these different losses and the grief of your life not going in the direction that you wanted it to become the woman who we see today?
Oh, it's such a great question. I want to acknowledge and appreciate you for sharing your grief journey and for like talking about your past self and how you buried it, but how you want to bring it back because I think, what I talk about in the book is the fact that we can learn so much about our life experiences as long as we give ourselves a little bit more grace and, focus on it being a journey and that we can learn about ourselves, we can learn about others and we can just keep going, right? And, I went through a lot, right? And I talk about it in the book. I have an autoimmune disease that took me 15 years to even figure out what it was. I went to a vein doctor that told me that if I just started running, I'd be fine because runners don't have fat legs. I was like, not very helpful, but thanks. And then I worked for the family business for about 20 years, and it was the worst day of my life when we closed the doors. And it wasn't
Mm,
just the worst day of my life for me, but like there was 150 other people that lost their jobs that day. And I lost my future. I lost everything that I had been working towards because I wanted to take over the company one day. I'd never been on an interview, I'd never had to really look for a job. And I lost my whole sense of self that day. I really had no idea what I was going to do. And it was interesting because in order to be able to find myself again, I just had to take small steps every single day. There was some days I put a lot of pressure on myself to be like, no, you have to do all these big things to be able to like get over what it is that you're, maybe wallowing on the couch about. And also, there was a lot of questions, right? My dad's the family business was in the same industry, and it was like, how can I be the voice in this industry after what just happened? Like, why would anybody listen to me? Why would they trust me? Why would they respect me? And if I had listened to that, I wouldn't be where I am today.
100% agree, Sarah. I mean, you've really reinvented, right? From a space of, oh, great, 150 other people, including me, are starting over from scratch,
Mhm.
literally.
Yeah.
No, nothing. You never had to really apply for a job because you just went right into the family business and
Mhm.
you learned everything there.
Yeah, it
right?
is.
And so now, where do I go? And there's so many people, Sarah, who are in that crossroad right now
Yeah.
where they've lost themselves
Hmm.
through different career transitions, life transitions, as I brought up about my mom's transition, my dad's transition, me leaving the corporate space. It'll be 5 years in 2026 that I've been an entrepreneur. But I
Congratulations, by the way.
thank you.
That's
Thank
awesome.
you. It has been one of the most rewarding yet trying experiences that I've ever had. But I wouldn't have it any other way because when I think back to my television career, I aspired to go all the way up the ladder. Just like you, I'm like, okay, I'm going to travel around the world, be this big producer in the news world, and make my family proud, right? But it didn't come to fruition for a reason. But there was still that passion in my soul and in my heart to tell stories. There
Right.
was still that fire. And that's what led me to here today, to hosting Grew with Portia, to creating it, where I'm able
Hmm.
to tell the stories in the way that I want to and really connect with people and help them to see the hidden gift that's been born from their transitions, their grief journeys.
Yeah, I love that. I love that. I mean, I had the podcast before the company closed its doors, and it's such an interesting story because when the doors closed, sure, everybody was out, including me, but I lost my team and I lost my co-hosts, and I had companies paying to come on the show. So I had an obligation to fulfill that or refund the money. And so, I decided that I would lean into all of it and learn graphic design, social media, website design, you name it. I had to learn it just to keep the podcast going. And I had no idea that it could go anywhere. I'll be perfectly frank. I had no idea that the podcast could go anywhere, let alone where we are today, because we've got a team of 14 people. 98% are women owned businesses, which we're very proud of. But I had no idea where it could go. But I got up every single day to do it, right? Like it gave me the why, it gave me the purpose of, hey, this is the only thing I got going for me right now. Let's lean in. And I am not a graphic designer. Like if you go back and look at those graphics, they are horrible. They are so horrible.
Sarah, a little digression. When I was going through some of my old anchor videos, I was telling my former co host about them.
Hmm.
And I'm like, dude, how did I end up on some of these videos with acne out of the wazoo? I mean, literally the kind that you watch in those gross pimple popping videos. I'm like, they should have had the little cane to just pull me because I'm like,
But
this is despicable. But I can laugh about it now.
But also, like some of my worst audio episodes are some of my most listened to.
Yeah,
And that's
okay.
something that I talk about in the book is that it's progress over perfection, right? My first episode, so the podcast originally was called Two Babes Talk Supply Chain, and I had a male co-host. And so I had called it Two Babes Talk Supply Chain because tongue in cheek, we were trying to push the industry. And some of those episodes, like we recorded them on Skype.
Ah,
They were
oh,
awful, like absolutely awful. But this is what people don't realize is they see overnight successes,
yeah.
but those have taken, 5, 8, 10, maybe 15 years to get to where they are. And we all expect it to be easy, right? We can jump
Mm-hmm.
into it. It's all going to come. It's all going to be easy, et cetera, et cetera. But it takes work and it takes some humbling moments where you're going to put stuff out there that is not 100%. And if you don't, it means you're striving for perfection and you're kind of holding yourself back. So,
Oh, yeah. You're nailing yourself to your own grave and coffin
hmm.
because, perfection essentially is the keeper and robber of so many dreams. Right.
So,
I wonder who makes the most money, Sarah, perfection or the graveyard? I wonder which one because
well, you can also throw comparison in there too, right?
yeah,
Because
yeah.
comparison drags you down just as much.
Yeah. And I'm curious. I'm glad you brought that up because let's be realistic.
Hmm.
We all struggle with perfection, comparison,
Hmm.
starting over, especially women. And you're in a male dominated industry. And I'm curious, Sarah, how can others see comparison and perfection from a standpoint of this is a stepping stone and not the full destination of where I'm looking to go.
Yeah, I think one of the biggest things really is around awareness.
Mm, yep.
Like just really understanding yourself. There's pressure from so many different places. And if we gave in to all of those pressures, we wouldn't necessarily be us. Right? I
Yeah.
loved what you said at the beginning of the episode is the fact that this medium told you to be Portia, right? To do it the way that you want to do it, tell the stories the way that you want to do it. And I've kind of embraced that as well in the fact that it is too hard to be somebody that you're not. So you
Say
may
that
as
again.
Do you literally want me to say it again? I'm
Say
kidding.
that again for the people in the back.
It is too hard to be somebody that you are not because it just takes too much time, energy, money, and effort. And then what are you left with? You're left with a shell because you're not entirely sure who you are in that moment anymore. Because you've been really not lying, but like, you haven't been your true authentic self. And I think that it really just starts with awareness. And you talked about something else earlier around labels and identity. And I
Mm-hmm.
think tying ourselves to work and what that means to us. And I talk about this in the book as well, is that we give our power away too many
Yep.
times.
We
If
marry
we're
a
not
title.
aware of ourselves and our power and what that looks like for us and how we're speaking things into existence, we give our
Mm-hmm.
power away all the time. And we give our power away to either the pressures of society, or we give our power away to those labels, or we give our power away to our job because we lean in way too far and we
Okay.
kind of lose ourselves. We can do that in relationships, we can do that with kids. And so I think awareness really is the foundational key to
Mm-hmm.
figuring out everything else.
Oh, 100%. Because I think that was my dilemma. Was I
Yeah.
was so married, Sarah, to that title that
Yeah.
once it was stripped away from me, I'm like, who am I now? What do I do? And even to this day, I'm still disconnected from everybody who I worked with when I worked in television, still to
Right.
this day. So talk about again that loss of community, right? And I
Yeah.
think that tends to happen once you become, if you want to call it an ex corporate convict, if you want to call it that. I've noticed that once
Yeah.
you leave certain circles, you're no longer, you know, integrated or even considered it anymore. When there was a rapport back then, now you're kind of, you know, part of the ex con crew.
Yeah. It's so true.
Yeah. And, Sarah, one of the things that I love too about you is you create spaces too for women to have
Mhm.
difficult conversations because a lot of us, let's be realistic, we say that we want real, but you know where I'm going with this, but
I do.
real tends to only be approved when it's in certain circles or certain conversations that others want to talk about and not what's really the elephant in the room, right?
Can
So
I
I'm
can
curious.
I share
Yeah,
an
go ahead.
example from
Yes.
Blended? I'm sorry. I You just brought something up for me. So, the Blended podcast, I bring 5 different people from different walks of life to talk about inclusion in the workplace. The first ever episode I did, I had this gentleman from the LGBTQIA plus community, and we were talking about identity, and we were talking about when it's appropriate to ask somebody.
Mm-hmm.
And he was like, I really want everybody to understand who I am as a person and how I identify. And I said, okay, so if I come up to you and I ask you, is that okay? And he's like, well, it depends who's around me. It depends what room we're in. It depends. And I was like, and we talked about it as a group. And in the end, he turned to everybody and he said, you know what? I just want people to know who I am and understand how I identify. No matter what I'm going to share with you, I want to be able to share that with you. So I'm going to throw all of that out the window and I want you to come ask me.
And see how simple, right? It's
Mhm.
it's as though it's become a crime, Sarah, to ask a question, right? Or
Yeah,
people are so intimidated to ask because of assumptions, all of the programming that we have about certain
right.
cultures, how we grew up. You know,
Mhm.
I little lesson that I learned over the summer. So I went on a long road trip with my boyfriend. First time I've ever done that.
How
And
did
there
it go?
was,
You're still together.
we are still together. We went camping, like real camping,
Oh,
as in tent in the woods
kudos
type
to
of
you.
thing, right? I know some people get divorced over that stuff, but hey, we didn't get, torn up by bears or anything like that. We didn't have the squirrel clan carrying us down the hill at some point. So there was a part in the trip where, my guy said something. Well, no, it was his silence. His silence offended me. And I'm used to, messaging my friends like, hey, what the heck? What do I do? But I had to be the bigger person and ask him. And Sarah, I'm
Mhm.
glad that I did, because that was pushing me out of my comfort zone of what I'm used to doing. And it also helped me to appreciate the assertiveness that I've developed over the last couple of years. Where I know that, a lot of us were bullied in school. So sometimes you try to, still hide and mask yourself. But it seems as though I've met a lot of people who have experienced loss and grief. They've become some very assertive warriors in the last couple of years.
Yeah.
And I feel like I've become in the same boat. So to
Mhm.
that point, like, just being comfortable with asking a question.
Yeah, comfortable asking the question, but also being comfortable with the answer.
Mm, that part too. That part too. I think a lot of times we want a certain answer from people, but we have to learn to accept that everybody is going to respond in their own unique way.
Yeah.
Right. And not to judge them for how they respond, but accept them and understand you just respond accordingly
Yeah. Well,
and
and that
move forward.
awareness.
Yeah.
So awareness just came into that example that you talked about. So we talked earlier about awareness being about who we are as people and how we move around in the world and the impact that we want to make. Sure. But also the awareness in how far you've come. So you talked about in that example about, recognizing in yourself that the old you would have done this and the new you actually, went out of your comfort zone and asked a question.
Mm-hmm.
And so stopping for that moment and being like, wait a second, the work that I have been doing,
Yeah.
right? Like, this is what I've been working towards, and actually acknowledging it and celebrating it as a win. So, no matter how that conversation went, you knew, at least for yourself, that you had come far enough to be able to do that in that moment.
Yes. Yeah. And talk about celebrating milestones. That was a big one for me when I recognized, like, oh, this is something I've struggled with for a long time.
Right.
And now I can check this off like, wow, you did it. And we just
Hmm.
never know when it's going to come, but be present in the moment when it does. You
Yeah.
know,
But also recognize that it could happen again.
yeah,
So a lot of people think like this journey of self-awareness and self, reflection or even the work that we do is that we do it one time and
yeah,
it's just going to automatically happen every single time. No, next time you might not want to ask the question. You might not feel like asking the question and you might go back to asking your girlfriends.
mm-hmm,
It's not a failure. It's not a loss. It doesn't mean that you're taking a step back, but the awareness and the fact that you've done this the one time and then having grace for yourself and saying, it's not resonating with me this time. I'll try it again next time. Right? Because
yeah,
it's
yeah,
not about blame.
mm-hmm,
It's not about us taking a step backwards or anything like that. It's really just being aware of who we are in that moment and how we want to move through that moment.
mm-hmm.
And it doesn't look the same every time, and it doesn't have to.
That part. And being open with the progress, right? I think you said it beautifully. It's progress, not perfection. Right. I
Mhm.
think, we try to, I use the example of, how you go to different arcades and they have the little dart game and everybody wants to hit the bullseye. You're not going to hit the bullseye every time, right? Sometimes it's going to, it might go in somebody's drink. Hopefully they don't drink it, but, you never know where it's going to fly, right? But you're aware of it.
Mhm.
You
Yeah.
don't put yourself in a prison of blame because you're not repeating the same bullseye tactic every time.
Mhm. Yeah, and think about,
Yeah.
like, some of the major athletes, right? They went like, the basketball players, they go and shoot hoops for hours. Who are we to think that we're going to get something right every single time and we haven't put the work in?
That part, that part, a
Yeah, I
lot.
think anyways, I think it just I feel like a lot of people think that it's just going to come. It's like working out.
Oh
You
yeah, I
know?
mean, you're not gonna lose the Thanksgiving gut if you still sitting on the couch watching Stranger Things every day. I mean,
I mean,
it's
it's fun,
it,
but
I mean, or if you want to get some movement in, put Stranger Things on your phone or this is where Sarah, we need to have, how the little kids in the cartoons, they put the little hot dog in front of them on the fishing pole and then they have them chase it. It's almost like we have to do the same thing as adults to get us to move, like bribe ourselves to move. But obviously for me, it'd be cheesecake, not hot dogs. I love cheesecake. That's a whole nother story. Sarah, we're going to be wrapping up here soon, my friend.
okay.
First of all, I want to say thank you again for coming on and sharing with us your story and how people can learn to reinvent themselves at any stage, right? Even
Yes.
in the same industry that they essentially got exited stage left to, right?
Mhm.
Sarah, for our audience, before we conclude, I want to give you time to talk about your book for a minute. Your book, I Buried Her in a French Press. Please show it to us. I'm curious, Sarah, what is the symbolism behind the French press title? Because I know we talked about coffee in the beginning, but
Yes.
are you the coffee grounds being pressed down? What's the symbolism, and how can people get a copy of your book, I Buried Her in the French Press?
So, and I appreciate you for asking, and I loved being on the show. This is awesome. So the title of the book is an ode to my grandmother, and there is a chapter dedicated to her in this book because she passed away during the pandemic, and I had to arrange the burial from Canada. She was in the UK. And the story, I guess I can tell you a little bit about the story. Anyways, the day of the burial, we showed up and her ashes were in a plastic bag in a white paper box. And I was like, what am I gonna do? What am I gonna do? Because the executor had torn the house down to the studs before I got there. So like all of my personal belongings gone, any of the mementos gone. And I walk
Mm,
into the house and like my grandfather's urn is there and then her ashes are in this thing and I just went with my gut. It's really a story about resilience and trusting your gut like in the moment when there's so much emotions going on around you. And I started opening up cupboards and there was a French press in a box, never been touched, with a receipt from 1992.
wow. Year after I was born. We're not gonna go there.
And so, anyways, the story goes into the details, but the title is an ode to her because she was like my best friend, and the rest of the title is it's a memoir about finding my voice and the power of being heard. And so the stories in here are really about my relationship with self-worth based on my life experiences and how that really helped me in finding my superpower.
And Sarah, how can our audience get a copy of I
Yes.
Buried Her in a French Press?
So go get it on Amazon, amazon.com, .ca, .uk, wherever you live. It's on Amazon. It's Kindle, paperback, hardcover, and the audiobook version I just finished recording, and that should be out in February or March.
Excellent. So those of you, you can Google the title if you want to. Google is your friend. I Buried Her in a French Press. You can also probably just Google Sarah Barnes-Humphrey on Google, find her on LinkedIn, all social media platforms.
Yes, on Instagram.
Yes, IG, wherever you are on social media, I'm sure you can find Sarah wherever. Well, everybody, that was Miss Sarah Barnes-Humphrey that you heard from on this episode of Grew with Portia. And that concludes our conversation for today. And until next time, everybody, peace and hair grease, everyone.
Thank you so much.